Please be seated. Well, first of all, please let me welcome you on behalf of my colleagues on the Court of Appeals. We greatly appreciate the fact that you appeared today to participate in the celebration of the robing of our new colleague, Elaine Brown. This is one of the traditions that our court enjoys. 2 weeks ago, we celebrated the service of one of our colleagues who left the active service and remains as a senior judge. Today, we celebrate the beginning of a career on the Court of Appeals. And I know I speak on behalf of Judge Brown in thanking all of you for your presence here today. It's my privilege to introduce the members of our court who are able to appear today, and I will do so, and afterwards then you may greet them, and then I will have an opportunity to introduce some of our distinguished guests. Joining me, whom I will introduce a few moments later, is our Chief Justice, Randall Shepard. On the dais before you here, on the bench before you, we have the Honorable Cale J. Bradford of Marion County, who is serving as the acting presiding judge of the 2nd District. The Honorable Paul D. Mathias of Allen County, who is the presiding judge of the 3rd District. The Honorable Melissa May of Vanderburgh County, who's the acting presiding judge of the 4th District, and the Honorable Margaret G. Robb of Tippecanoe County, who's the presiding judge of the 5th District. On the row immediately in front of me are my colleagues, Judge Edward W. Najum, Jr. of Monroe County, Judge L. Mark Bailey of Decatur County, Judge Nancy H. Vadic of Porter County, and Judge Terry A. Crone of St. Joe County. Please welcome my colleagues. Our court family is also honored to have today some of our colleagues who serve as senior judges, the Honorable George B. Hoffman, Jr., the Honorable Patrick D. Sullivan, and the Honorable John T. Sharpnack, who 2 weeks ago today retired from active service. We are also joined by Mrs. Helen Sharpnack, wife of Senior Judge John Sharpnack. We have also with us today our colleague with the Indiana Tax Court, the Honorable Thomas G. Fisher. I'll call upon Chief Justice Shepard in a moment to introduce members of his court. From the executive branch, we welcome today and are privileged to have him in our presence, a man who has on many occasions expressed his interest and support of the judiciary. Please welcome our Governor, Mitch Daniels, Jr. The executive branch is also represented by the Lieutenant Governor's Assistant, Mr. Virgil Madden, and the Governor's Office is also represented today by Mr. Mark Massa, General Counsel to the Governor. As a former member of the executive branch who will also participate in our ceremony, I want to also welcome today Ms. Sue Ann Gilroy, a former Secretary of State of Indiana. Thank you, Sue Ann, for being here. Please join me in welcoming these guests. From our state's judiciary, we are joined today by the Honorable Robin L. Moberly of the Marion Superior Court, the Honorable Mike Whitty of the Dearborn Superior Court, and the Honorable William Weichert of the Du Bois Circuit Court. I think we're also joined today by a gentleman who's soon to replace Judge Brown on the bench, Mr. Mark McConnell, Judge Designate of the Du Bois Superior Court. Thank you all for being in attendance today, and we welcome you as well. From our extended court family, we say welcome and thank you to our clerk, Mr. Kevin Smith of the Clerk of the Supreme Court, Court of Appeals and Tax Court, our court's administrator, Mr. Steve Lancaster. We're joined today by Ms. Lilia Judson, the State Court Administrator, Mr. Dave Remendini, the Chief Deputy and Executive Director of the State Court of Administration, Ms. Jane Siegel, Executive Director of the Indiana Judicial Center, Ms. Karen Graves, Administrator of our Tax Court, Ms. Meg Babcock, Counsel for the Judicial Nominating Commission, Ms. Julia Orzeski, Executive Director of the Indiana Commission for Continuing Legal Education, Mr. Tom Van Komeke, Director of the Indiana Continuing Legal Education Forum, and Ms. Sandra Huddleston, Executive Director of the Richard G. Lugar Excellence in Public Service Series. Thank you all for also joining us today. We have from the organized bar, the Vice President of the Indiana State Bar Association, Mr. Rod Morgan, the President of the Defense Trial Council of Indiana, Mr. Jeff McKean. We have Mr. James Huner, Executive Director of the Defense Council of Indiana, and Ms. Michelle Wilson, Executive Director of the Indiana Trial Lawyers Association. We appreciate your participation in joining us here today as well. Thank you. Two weeks ago, I undertook to introduce the gentleman to my left, and in so doing, I elevated him to the United States Supreme Court. I acknowledge that reversible error. Maybe it was, some of you thought that that was in fact intended. It was not. It was in my own nervousness. But we have a gentleman here today who has presided over the selection process, that being the merit selection system adopted by our constitutional amendment in 1970, of all of the members of the Indiana Court of Appeals. Last year we said goodbye to the last elected member of the old appellate court, but all of the members of the Court of Appeals have been selected by the merit selection process, and all of the members that are presently on the court were selected when Randall T. Shepard served as the chairman of the nominating commission. In addition to the Chief Justice, I believe we're also joined by other members of the commission for whom we want to extend our gratitude for having provided the governor with such outstanding potential candidates for appointment. Your participation makes this process work, and we very much appreciate the fact that you help pick our law partners for the rest of our career. It is with high honor that I introduce the Chief Justice of the state of Indiana, Randall T. Shepard.
Well, the full team is on deck this afternoon to wish Judge Brown a happy career as an appellate judge. My colleague Brent Dixon and Ted Boehm and Frank Sullivan and Robert Rucker have all come to add their good wishes for a great and fruitful career. Chief, you haven't said the most important thing yet today. Being an old Lawrenceburg boy, I know it's in your heart. It's a great day for Southern Indiana. It's also an interesting day that Judge Brown should come to the bench in this place and at this time in the afterglow of a remarkable moment in the public life and official life of our state. The first time in 40 years that the Indiana primary has focused the attention of the whole country, and in some ways other countries, on what people in not just Indianapolis, but Lafayette and Boonville and Jasper all think about the future of the nation. You could hardly swing around a dead cat without hitting a presidential contender, and a great many Hoosier cities and towns have had the chance to eyeball a former or future president, and than is normally the case. But there's one thing that didn't happen in that primary that bears special mention. And that is a big, expensive, statewide knockdown, drag-out fight over who ought to be the judge of the Indiana Court of Appeals. This does happen, of course. Right after Indiana got done having its say, the people over in West Virginia were teed up for a presidential primary, but likewise a primary over who ought to serve on the Supreme Court of West Virginia. And it was an election like most modern large American elections, one in which all the contending forces of particular interest lined up on each side, whether they be corporations or insurance companies or plaintiffs' lawyers or labor unions, all pumping out money to hope to persuade voters that this judge or that judge would rule in ways more favorable to their particular line of work. As compared to that, the way in which Elaine Brown came to today, I think would have to be called by any fair-minded and close observer altogether rational, calm, and very much in the public interest. Think, if you would, about those people who were close to the line but aren't here today. My friend has already mentioned Judge Whitty, Les Shively, lawyer in private practice in Evansville, Judge Jane Craney, Steve Johnson from the Public Defender Council, Judge Tom Snow, Senator Brent Steele. These are the people who, amongst the larger class of applicants, found themselves, along with Judge Brown, in the last days under final consideration. And many of you will know all or most of those names, and I suggest to you that just about any combination of those 7 names would have given Governor Daniels a hard row to hoe, and would have likewise given the people of Indiana, in the end, a thoughtful and energetic seeker of truth and dispenser of justice. For surely that's what Elaine Brown represents. Although this is a process that helps Indiana not look like elections in West Virginia, the truth is, the first time I can remember knowing about Elaine Brown, it happened because of an election. She did something that I had never heard any other person do in my whole memory. A Republican won an election in Du Bois County. This seemed to merit inquiry, and so it's been that the people there, multiple times, the ones who know her best, have said, when something terribly important of ours is at stake, the person we'd most like to have decide it is Elaine Brown. Judge Brown will now decide hosts of cases for people from all over Indiana, and I think that they will conclude, as the people in Du Bois County have concluded, that their future and our state's future is in great hands. It will be a great pleasure to serve here with you. We're excited at the prospect of what you can accomplish here. And I guess the best thing a Chief Justice can say to a Court of Appeals judge, may you have many transfers denied. Up to you, Judge.
The Chief Justice has already indicated how difficult it must have been for Governor Daniels to make the selection, and all of us who watched that process appreciate how difficult it must have been. We're graced today by his presence and his willingness to participate in this ceremony of the Court of Appeals. In addition to be the Chief Executive Officer of our great state, he is also an honored member of our profession. And so it is that I have the privilege of calling upon to speak before the court the Honorable Mitchell E. Daniel, Jr., Governor of the State of Indiana.
Your various honors and good friends. There are few occasions as simultaneously solemn, momentous, but also joyful as the one we're convened to enjoy this afternoon. Well, maybe not always joyful. I've always liked the story told by Woodrow Wilson, who was, as governor, wakened in the middle of the night by an excited phone call. The voice on the other end said, "Governor, if you haven't heard, Judge Baker has passed away, and I'm calling to tell you that I'd like to take his place." Wilson replied, "If it's all right with the undertaker, it's all right with me." I'm waiting for my opportunity to deliver that line to somebody. There are few actions that come before a person in my current walk of life that one knows in advance will outlive his or her own tenure by a long stretch. And quite naturally, when a judgment call like that comes along, one takes it with special gravity and tries to give it special thought, reflection, and attention. And so this second opportunity that I have had to select from a carefully screened panel, a person who will serve a long time, especially given the youthfulness of our selectee today, is a call to be thought about a long time and very carefully. And I certainly endeavor to do that. I want to echo and underscore all that's been said about the Selection Commission. They simultaneously made my job easy and difficult. Easy in the sense that I knew I couldn't really go wrong. I could have drawn straws, thrown dice, cut cards, or otherwise made it a matter of chance and known that we would be robing a distinguished judge to be this afternoon. But I did my very best to make certain that we had the best of that best lot. I interviewed each of the candidates myself in hopes of finding that differentiator, that essence of special competence, grace, mercy, greatness perhaps, that we all associate with the great justices among us. We're here to celebrate such a person. But of course, we get the chance on a day like this to celebrate something even greater, and that is the system in which that person will operate. It is so easily taken for granted by those who have only known the rule of law that this must be the natural order of events. And we must seize every opportunity when it comes to remind ourselves, our children, our fellow citizens, how precious, how unusual in the sweep of human history is the system in which we've all grown up, and how special is the obligation for anyone who touches it, even as peripherally as my job has now called on me to do, to preserve its best traditions and to ensure that those who are entrusted with the judicial power are the finest among us. The system which the Chief Justice has just reminded us never to take for granted does not even exist, of course, in many of the other states of this free federation. It's a special blessing in Indiana. All such systems are ultimately to be judged by the results, and here they sit. I hope Hoosiers never take for granted either the unique quality of the people and therefore the justice which we are enjoying in our time. It is the product of the system which people before us put in place to assure that competence and integrity and mercy and fidelity to the rule of law would be the criteria and the only criteria by which someone could come to the place at which Elaine Brown finds herself this afternoon. So I'm here to celebrate, yes, a life, a career, and a career to be with her family and friends and her new colleagues. But I'm also here on behalf of our fellow citizens to celebrate a system by which we are blessed and a special version of that system by which Hoosiers are blessed, which now becomes stronger by virtue of the latest person of excellence to take up residence in it. Elaine Brown has seen the law from both sides of the dock. And among many, many qualities which she will bring to the bench, I suppose this was one that impressed me the most. Many, many years as a judge, and as many years in front of judges, knowing what passes through the minds and the hearts of those who seek justice and those who advocate on their behalf. I truly believe among a tremendous assortment of legal talent, we have identified the best, the most ready, and the most promising of the lot. And I take with me the comfort that in my dotage, I will be able to look back on this particular decision, if no others, and know with the friends and the family and those who have helped throughout your life to bring you to this point, Elaine, that we are proud of you, and that on this day at least, Indiana made exactly the right choice. Congratulations.
This court has had a tradition of having the newest member presented by a member of the bar or a member of the public who has personal knowledge of and experience with the individual. Judge Brown is blessed by the fact that there are three ladies today who are going to take time from their busy schedules to come and celebrate her accomplishments and her inclusion on our court. We're blessed today to have with us Judy Singleton, co-founder of the Richard G. Lugar Excellence in Public Service Series, Sue Ann Gilroy, founding board member of the series, and Sandy Huddleston, executive director of the series. Ladies, the podium is yours.
Thank you very much, Chief Shepard and Justices, Chief Justice Baker and Justices, Governor Daniels, Judge Brown, friends and family. Judy Singleton and Sandy Huddleston and I represent Senator Dick Lugar and over 340 graduates of the Lugar Excellence in Public Service Series. We represent a group of people who never had one doubt that this would be the selection that you would make. And we are just so pleased to be here. We saw the potential of Judge Brown 16 years ago when she was a member of the second Lugar class. In 1991, Dick Lugar knew that there was a need to encourage more Republican women to enter government and politics and public service. So with the guidance and inspiration of Judy Singleton and others, we created the Lugar Excellence in Public Service series, which is a leadership program that identifies women throughout the state of Indiana who have achieved great things in their own lives, their personal lives and their professional lives, who expressed an interest in serving their fellow citizens. And we met in 1992, Elaine Brown. I also at that time met two adorable children, age, I believe, Gordon and Marissa, maybe 4 and 6 years old. I met her father, who was one of the most enjoyable and exciting men and leaders and a mentor to Judge Brown, I have no doubt. We saw then a young woman with a sense of fairness, a common sense, a woman who was willing to take risks and live a full life, and one who was very, very intelligent. She has learned her lessons well through the years. So on behalf of all of us, we congratulate you, and we are pleased to present her to the Court of Appeals.
Thank you, ma'am. We accept your presentation, and thank you very much for your statements. As is our tradition, we will call upon a member of the bar to administer the oath. Once again, I will ask the governor to administer the oath, and he will be joined in administering the oath by Mr. Stephen Bradley, a member of the bar, who will hold the Bible. Governor? Judge Brown will now be robed by her children, Marissa Brown Zimmer and Gordon William Brown.
Governor Daniels, Chief Justice Shepard, Chief Judge Baker, judges, lawyers, esteemed citizens, family, and all of you highly distinguished guests here today. This is a day that everything and yet nothing in my life has prepared me for. It's a wow day, a defining moment. It's like a marriage for me. Oh, look at Steve Bradley starting to sweat. A marriage between my personal and professional lives, when I and my family and friends merge, if only for a while, with my professional colleagues and friends, and celebrate the glorious aligning of the stars that brought us all together and made this event happen. The last 9 months, starting with, should I apply, to why shouldn't I apply, to I made the first cut, to I'm in the final 3, to oh my gosh, this thing could really happen, to holy blank, it did. have been a life-changing, life-giving experience. I know the men among you are thinking that only a woman could compare the application process for becoming an appellate court judge to the gestational period prior to giving birth. But truly, what new life has been born of our collective efforts. And I say collective with all the underscoring possible, because only through the grace of God, the strength and wisdom and support of Steve Bradley, the understanding and support of my children, Marissa and Gordon, and their loves, Brandon and Leslie. Leslie and Brandon, would you stand, please? The love of my parents, Ed and Valeria Becker, would you please stand? And my siblings, Patty Wilbanks, Ed Becker, and Mike Becker. Would you stand? And their families, Mark and Emmy Stezik are here today. Ladies and gentlemen, these are my family. The letters of recommendation from judges and lawyers and community leaders, the help of my Lugar Series sisters, Sue Ann Gilroy, Judy Singleton, Sandy Huddleston, Teresa Lubbers, and Robin Moberly, and of Christine St. John, who unselfishly gave me their time and energy and unfailing support, and who recognize and exemplify that supporting other women's accomplishments only adds to, not detracts from, their own. To Kathy and Doug Bobble, who have done countless things for me throughout the years, and Hank and Becky Menke. Together, those four keep Du Bois County employed and prosperous. The members of the Judicial Nominating Commission, Chief Justice Shepard, Joan Hurley, Dr. Darrell Yost, Mark Lubbers, Steve Williams, Jim Young, and Cheryl Colvin, who saw something in me I didn't know I had. The ever-articulate Chief Judge Baker, Meg Babcock, the Governor's Counsel, Mark Massa, Anita Samuel, Joseph Hirgins, and Sebastian Smelko. My former staff, particularly Shirley, Nikki, and Tammy. Judge Bill Weichert and Judge Chad Songer, who inspired and befriended me during our years together on the bench in Du Bois County, and who continue to be absolute gifts to that community. Since being appointed, Steve Lancaster, Kathy Wethington, and their staff members. My new staff, Chris Arvin, Tom Bruder, Justin Krizmanich, and Sherry Carr. Would you four stand, please? These are my staff. And the true brains behind the operation, believe me. And finally, and most importantly, of course, Governor Daniels, as an appointee of whom I will always be conscious of the need to aim higher and continuously pursue excellence for Indiana, as he so generously and enthusiastically sets the example for every day. You've changed my life, Governor. Thank you so much. I am here only because of all of you, and so it is I who thanks and honors each of you who again today so unselfishly gave of your time and energy to be here. As I stand before you, I recognize how truly blessed my life is because of all of you. To the absolute joys of my life, my daughter Marissa, from whom love and charm and beauty and goodness flow abundantly to all she encounters. And my son Gordon, the personification of honor, integrity, intelligence, and wit. Please know that from the days of your births, I have been in awe of all that you are. Your self-actualization into people you have become has been an amazingly beautiful unfolding. To my parents, married over 60 years and still in love most days, thank you for the inspiration the example, the stability, the foundation. To Chief Justice Shepard, Justice Dixon, Justice Sullivan, Justice Rucker, and Justice Bohm, I am so honored to be serving underneath you, and I can only hope that your collective wisdom does in fact deem it appropriate to deny transfer from all of my rulings. As Marissa would say, fat chance, Mom. To Judge Sharpnack, I am honored and humbled to follow your lead. And to my new family of friends and colleagues on the Court of Appeals, who have been enormously gracious in welcoming me to the court. Judges Baker, May, Robb, Vedic, Riley, Bradford, Barnes, Crone, Darden, Bailey, Friedlander, Kirsch, Mathias, and Majum. I look forward to many years of friendship, collegiality, and congeniality as we work together to do justice for Indiana citizens. All of your kind gestures of welcome and acceptance into the court have confirmed for me that while you are all scholarly, distinguished, and accomplished individuals, you are also just good people, which is perhaps the highest compliment. I am abundantly grateful, and I want so much to pay each of you back. But then I'm reminded of the very last paragraph of a book my friend Sally Dominic gave me for Christmas called Eat, Pray, Love by Susan Gilbert, in which she says, "In the end, though, maybe we must all give up trying to pay back the people in this world who sustain our lives. In the end, maybe it's wiser to surrender before the miraculous scope of human generosity and to keep saying thank you forever and sincerely for as long as we have voices. And so to each of you, thank you forever and sincerely."
Like our new colleague, we also noticed that there was some wind in the air, and it might have gotten a little bit in our eyes as well. Charles Kettering said that we should all be concerned about the future because we'll have to spend the rest of our lives there. Judge Brown represents the future of the Indiana Court of Appeals. She's going to be my law partner for the rest of my career, and I look forward to working with her, as do my colleagues. The greatest use of life is to spend it for something that outlasts it. We have the privilege of, in fact, representing justice in the state of Indiana. And you will find, as you already have, that we are great, gifted, and that we get to spend our life in such an endeavor. Judge Brown is, in addition to all of the things that we have celebrated today, a very spiritual person. And it had been her hope that there would have been one of her priests available to say an invocation or benediction. But as we leave here today, I would ask you but one thing, and I know I speak on her behalf, especially in light of her closing comments. A single grateful thought towards heaven is the most complete prayer, and we all have much to be thankful for, including Elaine Brown. As we conclude our ceremony today, my colleagues and I ask you to join us for some refreshment. Now, it won't be exactly as you are accustomed in Du Bois County. Our caterer does not do sauerkraut and some of the other accoutrements that you're accustomed to, and we're probably prohibited from having cold beer. But we've done the best that we can under the circumstances, and we look forward to visiting with you and to celebrating this moment. We welcome Elaine Brown to the Indiana Court of Appeals, and we thank all of you for your participation here today. Mr. Bailiff, would you please call the court?
Be ready. is going to adjourn.